Chapter 6, Fragments of Flight. The silence in the distorted library stretched taut after the last shadow entity dissolved, broken only by Hermione's ragged breathing and the persistent groaning of the warped architecture. Dust motes danced in fractured light beams, illuminating the tear in Hermione's robes and the dark smear on her cheek. She pushed herself upright against the shifting obsidian wall, her knuckles white around her wand. "You broke it," she whispered, her voice hoarse as her gaze darted between Harry and Ron. "The reflection. That's how you defeated them?" Ron lowered his trembling wand hand, the phantom image of the chessboard still haunting his eyes. Harry figured it out. They're tied to the broken glass. Break the reflection they're using, they? He trailed off, swallowing hard as he finally met Hermione's gaze. The raw vulnerability in his expression mirrored the fear they'd just seen manifested on the wall. The terror of being left behind, inadequate. Harry stepped forward, his own adrenaline making his hands unsteady. "Are you hurt?" The question felt inadequate, but the sight of Hermione trapped, fighting those clawed shadows while the mirror showed them abandoning her, had carved a hollow space beneath his ribs. He remembered Snape's warning in the dungeons. The corruption preys on emotional fractures. It amplifies what already exists. The argument with Ron, the accusations of secrecy, the mirror dimension had weaponized their unresolved tensions. Hermione touched her torn shoulder gingerly, just shaken and cold. She shuddered, pulling her robes tighter. "That thing they showed you two walking away," her voice broke. "I know it wasn't real, but it felt. It latched onto something." Her eyes flickered to Ron, then away, a silent acknowledgement of the rift that had driven her to the library alone. The air hummed with unspoken apologies and the returning whispers, softer now, slithering at the edges of hearing. Fractured, feeding, flee. Ron flinched at Hermione's words, the color draining from his face. "We wouldn't," he started, his voice thick. "I didn't mean..." He cut himself off, scrubbing a hand over his face, the chessboard's crushing insignificance still pressed on him. "Blimey, Hermine, when we saw your bag, that shard..." He gestured helplessly at the impossible library surrounding them. "We just fell through." "The shard from Lockhart's old vanity," Hermione murmured, her analytical mind surfacing through the fear. "Snape warned Harry about other incursion points. I thought research was the answer." She looked around at the leaning shelves and void-like staircases, her expression grim. "I was wrong. This place, it's not just a reflection. It's alive, hungry. It uses our memories, our fears, like bait." A low, guttural sound echoed from a nearby corridor where bookshelves formed a jagged canyon. Several smoky shapes coalesced at the periphery, drawn by their presence. They pulsed faintly, observing. The whispering intensified slightly. Lost, linger, betray. "Right," Harry said, forcing his voice steady. He raised his wand, scanning the shimmering surfaces around them. The glass cabinet fronts, the unnaturally polished spine of a floating book, even a puddle of distorted light on the frozen sand. "We know how to fight them now, but we need to get out. If we came in through a reflection, we leave through one," Hermione finished, her eyes lighting with dawning understanding. "But not that shard. It was the entry point. The exit has to be a reflection strong enough to bridge back. Stable. Or..." She trailed off, looking at the volatile environment. "Or what?" Ron asked, his gaze fixed warily on the drifting shadows. "Or we get stuck here," Harry finished, the cold dread settling deeper. He remembered the bruised violet light of the stabilizer he'd applied to the mirror of Arist, a temporary patch on a leaking wound. This entire dimension felt like a gaping wound in reality. "We need to find a reflection showing Hogwarts. The real Hogwarts." They moved, forming a tight triangle. Harry took point, Ron guarding the rear, Hermione scanning the warped environment with fierce concentration. The labyrinth shifted subtly around them. A staircase that spiraled downwards moments ago now arched upwards into darkness. Books fluttered like trapped birds. They navigated treacherous paths, crawling over mounds of books that yielded like sponges, ducking under archways humming with unstable magic. Shadows flitted at the edges, keeping pace but not attacking. Waiting. "Here," Hermione hissed, pointing her wand at a large, ornate picture frame embedded crookedly in a wall of shifting sandstone. Instead of a painting, its surface was a swirling vortex of distorted colors. Within the chaos, fragmented glimpses flickered. a stone gargoyle, a familiar tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy, the edge of a suit of armor, unmistakably Hogwarts corridors. But the image was unstable, rippling violently. "It's trying to form," Hermione breathed, "but it's weak, fragmented." As she spoke, the swirling colors coalesced briefly into a clearer image, the seventh floor corridor outside the room of requirement. Standing before it, his back to the reflection, was a figure with greasy black hair. Snape. He seemed to be examining the wall where the mirror of Erised had been. The image pulsed, threatening to dissolve back into chaos. "Snape!" Ron exclaimed. "Maybe he's looking for the mirror, or us?" Before Harry could respond, the shadows surrounding them surged. Three entities, larger and more defined than before, detached from the darkness near the frame. Their smoky forms solidified into twisted parodies of human figures, with elongated limbs ending in sharp, glass-like claws. A wave of intense cold and despair washed over the trio. The whispering roared, trapped, forgotten, alone. The frame behind the entities flickered. The image of Snape vanished. In its place, a new scene formed. The Gryffindor common room, empty and dark. The fire was dead. Ron's abandoned chocolate frog card lay on the floor near the dormant hearth. Above the mantel, the portrait of the fat lady was empty, the canvas torn. It was Hogwarts, but abandoned, forgotten. The fear of irrelevance, of being left behind, radiated from the image, feeding the advancing entities. One lunged towards Ron, claws extended. "Ron, the frame!" Harry yelled, recognizing the tactic. "Break the reflection." Ron raised his wand, but hesitated, staring at the image of the abandoned common room. The chessboard terror resurfaced, freezing him. I can't." The entity's claw swept towards him. "Reducto." Hermione's voice rang out, sharp and clear. Her spell struck not the entity, but the edge of the ornate frame itself. A spiderweb of cracks exploded across the glass surface. The abandoned common room image shattered into fragments of meaningless light. The entity attacking Ron convulsed, its form unraveling with a soundless shriek. It dissolved. The other two entities recoiled, their forms flickering. The frame's surface now showed only fractured light, but the Hogwarts glimpses were gone. The exit point was damaged. "Blimey, Hermione!" Ron gasped, stumbling back from where the entity had been. "Thanks." He looked at her, a mixture of gratitude and shame in his eyes. "I froze, that stupid chessboard." "Later, Ron," Hermione said, her voice tight but not unkind. She was already scanning for another reflective surface. "We need another anchor. Quickly." The remaining entities were regrouping, their forms pulsing with renewed hunger, drawn by the surge of fear and the damaged frame. Harry spotted it, a large circular pool of still, dark water on the floor ahead, reflecting the chaotic library ceiling above. As he watched, the reflection shifted. Instead of leaning shelves and void, it showed a clear, stable image, the Hogwarts library ceiling, the familiar enchanted constellations twinkling peacefully. Madame Pince's ladder stood propped against a nearby shelf in the reflection. It was real, stable, an exit. "There," Harry pointed, "the pool." They ran, the entities closing in behind them. The whispering became a physical pressure, cold tendrils snatching at their robes. Steed, fracture. One entity lunged, claws scraping Ron's shoulder, tearing fabric. He cried out, stumbling. Harry spun, raising his wand. The entity loomed, its smoky face shifting. For a terrifying instant, it mirrored Pansy Parkinson's pale, fearful expression from the seventh floor corridor. A callback to the first shared horror. Harry hesitated, thrown. "Harry, now!" Hermione screamed. She stood at the edge of the dark pool, her wand aimed not at the entity, but at the water's surface. The reflection of the peaceful library ceiling shimmered. "We go together. On 3. 1. The pansy entity lunged. Ron, gritting his teeth against the pain in his shoulder, shoved Harry aside and blasted a nearby floating globe, reflecting the entity's distorted form. "Reducto!" The globe exploded. The entity shrieked, dissolving. "2!" Hermione shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Harry scrambled to his feet, grabbing Ron's arm. They reached Hermione just as the final entity, a massive, multi-limbed shadow, reared over them, its form drawing substance from the fractured light and their mounting terror. The air turned arctic. 3! Hermione plunged her hand towards the reflection of the enchanted stars. Harry and Ron followed, grabbing her shoulders. Their hands broke the surface of the dark pool. Not water, but pure, icy silence. A sensation of falling upwards, through a tunnel of rushing darkness and fragmented whispers. Hogwarts' stone ceiling rushed towards them, solid and real. They tumbled out onto the familiar, solid wooden floor of the Hogwarts library, landing in a heap beside Madame Pince's ladder. The silence here was different, real, heavy with dust and the scent of old paper. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows. No whispers, no shifting architecture. They were back. Harry pushed himself up, gasping. Ron groaned, clutching his shoulder where the entity's claw had torn his robes, revealing angry red welts beneath. Hermione sat up slowly, staring at her hands, then around the blessedly normal library. Her beaded bag and the open tome, Reflections and Rifts, lay undisturbed on the nearby table. The mirror shard was gone. Only a faint, almost imperceptible chill lingered in the air where it had been. Gone, Hermione whispered, touching the spot. The shard, it vanished when we fell through. Ron struggled to his feet, wincing. Good riddance. He looked at Hermione, then Harry. The anger from before was gone, replaced by exhaustion and a dazed relief. "You all right?" he asked Hermione gruffly. She nodded, standing. "Thanks to you two, both of you." Her gaze included Harry, but lingered on Ron. "What you saw on the wall." Ron flushed, looking at the floor. "Didn't mean it," he mumbled. "What I said in the common room before you vanished." He gestured vaguely. Was being a prat, a scared prat. He finally met Harry's eyes. "And you, figuring out how to fight those things, that was decent." Harry felt a knot loosen in his chest. It wasn't fixed, not entirely. The chessboard and the abandonment vision still lingered, but the raw hostility was gone, replaced by the shared ordeal. "We learned their weakness," Harry said, the implications settling. "But Snape was right. The corruption spreads. That shard came from Lockhart's office. Any broken mirror, any reflective surface." He thought of the cracked mirror of Erised, patched but not healed. "We need to warn him, properly, all of it." Hermione picked up her bag, her expression resolute but shadowed. "He needs to know about the fear, how they use it, amplify it." She touched her torn robes. "And what we saw, the things they showed us, it wasn't random. It was our deepest insecurities, made manifest." She looked between them, the unspoken understanding clear. The cracks in their friendship had almost cost them everything. They moved towards the library exit, a united front once more, but changed. The path back to Gryffindor Tower felt long and too quiet. The flickering torchlight seemed less threatening now, but Harry knew it was a fragile calm. They had escaped the world of cracked reflections, but the enemy's gateway, fractured glass, remained scattered throughout Hogwarts, each shard a potential doorway, each reflection a potential weapon. The knowledge of how to fight was cold comfort when the battlefield was everywhere. A surface could break.